The Five Eyes Alliance may be the largest intelligence alliance you've never heard of before today. And what they're watching, unfortunately, is you. Or more accurately, they're watching what you do on the internet. So that's right, there is this mass surveillance and data interception agreement between 14 different countries in the world right now that only has one true purpose, and that's to spy on their citizens' online activities. And whether you live in the Five Eyes, the Nine Eyes, or the 14 Eyes country that we're going to talk about in just a minute or not, here's what you need to know about these alliances and how to protect your online privacy. Welcome back to Renegade News. I'm your host, Glenn Kowalski. Every week on this channel, we discuss how entrepreneurs and other freedom lovers just like you can build cancel culture-proof businesses, create a bigger impact in their business and in the world, and completely break free from the system. So what are the Five Eyes, the 14 Eyes, and the Nine Eyes alliances, and what do those mean? Well, 14 Eyes is an intelligence sharing alliance that was born out of an agreement between the US and the UK originally. It groups a total of 14 countries that share intelligence information. And that alliance has a number of different controversial characteristics. And one of the most questionable practices involves spying on citizens through proxy. For instance, for example, the US intelligence agency may not have legal cover to spy on Americans, but their British counterparts do. So in other words, if your own government isn't spying on you, it still has access to your entire browsing history thanks to its partners via this alliance. The Edward Snowden revelations concerning mass surveillance affirm that modern Western intelligence sharing arrangements are primarily focused on the digital world. But these alliances date back to the early days of the Cold War, when the Soviet Union and its satellites were the primary targets. Initially, the 14 Eyes only had 5 eyes, and it was an intelligence alliance that was formed in 1946 by the US and the UK before expanding to include Canada in 1948, Australia in 1956, and New Zealand in 1956 as well. From there, it grew to be 9 Eyes, incorporating several European states such as France and Denmark, before finally adding another 5. And in recent years, these alliances have come under scrutiny due to their impact on data privacy and the use of virtual private networks or VPNs. The countries that are involved in the Five Eyes, the Nine Eyes, and the 14 Eyes alliances and their partners include a number of different countries. So the Five Eyes countries are the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Then we have the Nine Eye countries, which take those 5 eyes, but then add the Netherlands, Norway, Denmark, and France. And finally, we have the 14 Eyes countries, which adds those original 9 eyes, plus Italy, Germany, Belgium, Sweden, and Spain. They also have partners to these 14 Eyes, so there's really more than that, which include Israel, Japan, South Korea, Singapore, and the British overseas territories. So it's expanding all the time. Now, officially, each group consists of the countries that I just named, but there's more countries that are allies of those 14, like the partners and others, and they may also be involved in the sharing of that information. So that means that any software that's made in any of those countries that are listed may not technically share your information, but it's still possible that they do because of one of these agreements. It's also worth noting that although all countries in the 14 Eyes share information within their group, the 9 Eyes and the 5 Eyes are both more secretive. So while the 5 Eyes are privy to all the information collected by the 9 Eyes and the 14 Eyes and their partners, not all the information that the 5 Eyes collect is available to those others. And that's true with the 9 Eyes as well, where they're a much tighter knit group. And their partners, while they do share information they collect with the other alliances, they do not have any access to the information that's collected by the alliances on the alliance countries. So like most things in government, it kind of gets confusing as to who has access to what. Now, as the want for this increased surveillance continues to grow, more and more countries are apparently aligning themselves with this global surveillance system. And we all know that that's what the WEF has wanted for a long time. That's what the government has wanted, this total draconian surveillance system. And most people just aren't aware of how far along this surveillance system actually is. And it seems that this system that we already have is kind of this hierarchy of secrets, getting more and more draconian, more and more secret, and more silent about what they're doing and what they're sharing. All of these alliances can collect and store your internet activities. So everything that comes from your internet service provider, your ISP, from third-party surveillance, or from any activity trackers that are within that country. So that data includes your IP address, it includes your browsing history, your search history. It also includes your phone calls, your video calls, your private messages, your emails, and anything else that passes through your internet connection. So basically, if it's sent via some type of an internet connection, it can be tracked, recorded, and stored. 14 Eyes also have the ability to tap your phone lines. And in the US, this is legal now under the Patriot Act, which you've probably heard of, which was enacted after 9/11. And there have been several attempts in recent years to restrict that access that was granted by that Patriot Act. But Congress has continually struck them down and allowed the surveillance to continue. Every time it comes back up, it gets renewed. And there's talk and there's chatter about getting rid of it, but as you know, that never happens. And the US isn't the only country that's gathering information on its everyday people. So if you look at Britain, it's technically illegal for Britain to spy on its own citizens, but it can ask Canada to do it because they are one of the Five Eyes countries. And this example extends into all the other alliance countries. So while it may be illegal to spy on your own citizens, it's not illegal, technically, for them to get other countries to spy on you. So that means that privacy laws can be moot and mean nothing if you live in any one of those regions of the 14 Eyes. The 14 Eyes countries also have the power to gather information from your ISP through warrants and other judicial means. In some countries, such as the US, it may not even be necessary to obtain those warrants to gather your data, and this is something that's becoming more and more known all the time. So if you want to avoid your ISP collecting what you transmit over the internet, you have to use a VPN, and that VPN has to come from a country outside of those 14 Eyes countries because, as you'll see, just having a VPN isn't enough. So is this really a problem? Well, it is a problem if you care about your online privacy. So for starters, you need to have a VPN, an email provider that doesn't operate within one of those 14 Eyes jurisdictions. That's why we talk about having servers and having technology that's outside of these jurisdictions, so they're not sharing that data. There have also been multiple instances where VPN and email companies have shared their user data with governments. The most troubling cases of these, really in my opinion, are VPN companies, because VPNs are specifically used to save privacy, but there are many examples where they were forced to collect data for government agencies without being allowed to inform their users about it. This has happened to RiseUp, it's happened to IPVanish, and it's happened to Hide My Ass, which, as you can tell by the name, didn't really live up to their promise. Now, some companies have fought back. Lavabit in the US, which is a US-based email system, when they were told that they had to start collecting this data and demand this access from its user accounts as part of this 14 Eyes surveillance mission, they shut down the company immediately, and they shut down all their operations as soon as they got that demand. And that is our kind of company. Those are the kind of companies that we want to work with. At least they had integrity and they shut themselves down rather than handing over that data. Gmail, on the other hand, which is the most popular email out there, is notorious for giving third parties full access to its data and all of its emails, as well as for tracking purposes via inboxes. So it's absolute opposite end of that scale. Yahoo was also cooperating with the US surveillance on multiple occasions, and they were scanning emails in real time. So whether these intelligence gathering techniques are designed to look over us or look out for us is really still a matter of debate, and you can make that own decision and your own decision on that matter. In my opinion, it really doesn't matter. And while sure, keeping track of troublemakers is an excellent way to prevent bad things from happening, it can also be a breach of our online privacy, and it constitutes a major threat in any democratic society. Another thing that you need to keep in mind when you're thinking about, especially in the VPNs, is that many experts believe that under the current wording of the Restrict Act, using a VPN could actually be considered illegal and result in up to 20 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. So even using a VPN from outside of one of these countries doesn't solve all of your problems. And that's something we're going to talk about in further videos and later in other videos as well. But no matter how you stack it, the surveillance dragnet that's growing around us is getting tighter, and it's tighter all the time. And staying free from that and keeping your own privacy is going to be your responsibility. And here at Renegade News, we're 100% committed to pushing back and to finding strategies to keep as much data privacy as we can within letter of the law. So you're really going to want to subscribe right now to stay on top of that ever-changing landscape. Every week here, we discuss how to protect yourself and your business from cancel culture, censorship, and the prying eyes of government and big tech. And in fact, in our next video, we're going to dive into the importance of using a VPN to protect yourself and to protect your freedom of speech. So you're really not going to want to miss that. And check out the video that you see on the screen right now, where we're taking a closer look at the most draconian internet censorship bill that we've seen in decades, the Restrict Act that we just mentioned earlier, and how it could be used to actually make VPNs illegal. I'm Blaine Kowalski from Renegade News, and I'll see you over there.